This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming Ali MacLean. She was the language lab girl in Can't Hardly Wait, the classic coming-of-age teen comedy from 1998. It's celebrating its 25th anniversary. I remember it like it was yesterday when that movie came out. And she'll be my first guest from that movie. And Ali does a lot of things. I mean, she's written for TV. She wrote for Buzzkill, the reality series, the hidden camera reality series back in the 90s. She was on Mr. Show with Bob and David. She had her own web series called Law of the Land. She's been a playwright. She's won several awards for that. She's been a radio personality and podcaster. Does all these creative things. She's a very creative person. And it's going to be a great conversation today. And I can't wait. And she's been joking around with me on the internet saying that wasn't her that played the language lab girl, and Can't Hardly Wait, but it's all in good fun. And I can't wait to find out about, what it was like to be on that set and be with so many great names, in the early prime of their careers. Jeffrey Love Hewitt, Ethan Embry, Seth Green, all these great talented people. So yeah, here is my interview with Ali MacLean. This is such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Of course.
So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting early on in your childhood?
Yeah. I wanted to act. There's this story that I tell that my mom, we differ on. Someone at one point, some woman at one point came up to my mom and said, that she should get me into commercials or, child acting or something, get me an agent. And my mom was like, no way, I don't want my kid in acting. And I always thought, it would have been so much easier if I was a child actor. And, I would have been able to keep up now, where I've been ahead of the game, because I'm just convinced I would have been, just like Drew Barrymore, and probably had the same life trajectory as hers. My mom says this is, of course, not true. I have a selective memory, and, none of that really happened. But, yeah, I always was doing plays in the backyard and charging my parents and the neighbors money to see them. They were usually based on cartoons that were already on TV, so there's probably a licensing issue, but I'm always doing some type of skit or play, and I was, director, writer, star. Sometimes I did the music, so yeah, I think I was always predestined to do that. I did some, theater in school as well. So yeah, as much as my parents did not want me to go into showbiz, I ended up there after a different trajectory.
Yeah, did you do school plays and community theater and all of that?
In high school, junior high and high school, let's see, I was in elementary school, I was in a play. I was the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. I just thought it would be perfect if they cast me as Alice, because that was my name, but no. Then I was in the senior show in school, but I took acting. I was in the theater classes in high school, and I did the citywide Shakespeare. And then I wanted to be a theater major when I entered college, but my parents forbade it. They wanted me to go in as poli-sci, so I did that, and my very first poli-sci course was horrific. And I went and changed my major right away, but I changed it to English because that's what they would permit. But I actually went in, I auditioned for the acting program and got in. So basically I secretively was a theater major and an English and then mass comm major at the same time, which was crazy. I was basically doing a dual major, secretly. And almost didn't graduate on time. So
Mm-hmm.
That's how much.
Yeah, where are you from originally?
I grew up in the Boston area.
Oh, you're
I
from
went
Boston.
to the Midwest. So,
Yeah, you're from Boston. That's cool. So you attended Miami University and you were in the acting program. Did any of your classmates go on to become, people we know in acting today?
actually, yeah, a couple. A guy that I was in a play with is doing quite well. His name is Eric Lang.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Escape at Dannemora, and I think nominated for a Critics' Choice Award. He's been in tons of stuff. He's in On the Bridge and Lost, and he was in that. Shoot, I forget the name of it. The movie with was it Amy Fox? The movie about the vampires, I think. He was just on Perry Mason.
Oh, okay.
The stuff, and then this guy Mark Povinelli, who was in like Water for Elephants, and right now he's starring in a one-person show in London.
Right.
A few people, yeah, that have done really well.
Oh, that's cool. Did you do a lot of theater while you were there?
Well, you had to be in a certain amount of shows while you were there as a theater in the acting program. So I was in a bunch of shows. I was the lead in a show called A Taste of Honey, which is still one of my favorite plays today. And I was in a show called Heidi Chronicles and a few others.
Yeah. Did you play like the comedy relief roles?
I didn't. Well, I guess in Heidi Chronicles, I did sort of, but I always thought I was a serious dramatic actress. I always thought I'd be playing Ophelia and Lady Anne, and that's just like the roles I was playing. And then I went to the La Jolla Playhouse as a conservatory student, and I was doing those monologues, these serious women crying over the coffin of their dead husband, and one of the people there was like, no, I don't think these are the roles for you. I think you're funny. I was like, no, I'm not funny. No. And they started giving me those monologues, and people would laugh, and I was like, oh, maybe I am. Okay. So when I moved to LA, which I thought would be exactly like La Jolla, which I found was not at all, I started doing groundlings and found that was sort of my niche.
Oh yeah, I'm friends with a lot of the old groundlings, that were there when that place started. I mean, that place has just a wonderful history that's like gone today with the improv groups now, because all the improv groups now, they're just it's all about the mighty dollar. But back then there was room for error. You could make mistakes. You didn't have to worry about making money. It was all about creativity in those days.
Yeah, it was like a workout group, and it was very competitive back then too.
Oh yeah.
And at the point where it was a moneymaker, but it was also kind of a place where Lauren was mining the place for people for Saturday Night Live. So people always thinking that I have to do my best because Lauren might be in the audience at any point in time, or the people from Mad TV. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit cutthroat, but it was also a place where people were really working out bits and stuff for their own shows and characters. So it was a really fun time to be there. I mean, I remember the main company at that point in time was this guy that you really didn't hear from since then called Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
And Harry, Anna Gasteyer, Chris Kattan, Michael Hitchcock, Bill Lamar. Some really great people. Lisa, one of my teachers was Lisa Kudrow.
Oh, yeah.
So, people were there when I started, yeah.
Oh, was Phyllis one of your teachers?
I'm sorry?
Phyllis Katz?
No, but I did take a writing class from her separate from that. She's amazing. She's a really great woman.
She is a great woman. I've had her on. Yeah, they're so great over there at the Groundlings. So when you told me on Facebook Messenger that Brian Posehn got you your first job, was that Mr. Show?
Yes. office mates on a show, my first writing gig called Buzzkill
Right.
on TV, which was sort of a combination of a prank show / sketch show.
Yeah.
And I was the writer's assistant. It was my first gig, and she was kind of a jaded veteran at that point. And since I was the writer's assistant, and probably because I was a younger woman, I got hazed constantly. I was sort of the pledge. But he saw me do stand-up or something, or I amused him in some way. So when they needed some young people for one of their sketches, he recommended me, and that was I think that was my first TV gig, if I'm not mistaken. So I owe him that. And that was probably the best comedy lessons you could ever get, was just sitting there and watching Bob and David go at it, because it was just a master class in comedy, the two of them. And everyone around them. You had Greg Behrendt and Paul F. Tompkins and Brian and Patton Oswalt and Doug Benson, all of those guys, Scott Aukerman, BJ Porter. They're all so funny and brilliant. Jill Talley and Tom Kenny.
Louis C.K., wasn't he a writer there?
No, I didn't see. No, I don't think Louis C.K. was. If he was, I never saw him.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I never watched that show when it was on because I was still in my 80s comedy phase, and I wasn't an alternative guy yet. Once I got into stand-up in 2006, I became more open-minded to alternative comedy. I like it, Are there any episodes you were on that maybe, stand out for you in terms of like characters you played or funny moments?
I was on a few kind of like, honestly, I've always played like the grunge kid or the young kid, because I looked very young, and I was young then, so it's sort of, background or one liner here or there. I very much remember shooting Jeepers Creepers Superstar, which was a spoof on Jesus Christ Superstar, with Jack Black in the lead, and we shot it at Vasquez Rocks in the middle of the summer, maybe July or August. It was blazing hot.
Mm-hmm.
And we all had to wear these Muslim tunics.
Veils?
With flannels over that, and then, wool skull caps like you do when you're in Seattle. And it was so hot, we were passing out. It was terribly hot, but it was so hilarious. I think I probably ruined every take I was in because I was laughing so hard. It was really great. It's a very funny episode. And I was just so wide-eyed and so happy to be there. I'm sure I made a bunch of them sick. They're like, ugh, get a load of her. Because they've been doing this for so long. But I really had a great time anytime I was involved.
Well, are you still in touch with anybody from it?
Yeah, I see Brian once in a while. I used to see David a lot because he started a website company with this guy, Sid Butler, who owns French Kiss Records, and they produced a web series that I wrote and created called, what was it called? The Law of the Land, excuse me, my memory. Law of the Land, which was a spoof on Homeland. And so he was a partner with Sid. So I would see him a lot, and I'd see him in New York. I didn't see Bob a lot after that. I would see him walking around the neighborhood because he lived sort of near me, but after, Better Call Saul took off, I would not see him as much. But I see the other guys. I see Patton a bunch.
Yeah, so they like you. Don't sell yourself short.
What's that?
I said they like you, so don't sell yourself short. You didn't make them sick.
Make them sick?
Yeah, because you said I probably made everyone sick. I was like, no, they like you if you see them around and they talk to you.
Just me being so wide-eyed and innocent and like Pollyanna, because they're the alt comics, and some of them are a cynical lot. So having and being so like, this is cool. They probably a bunch of them are like, oh boy, but don't. They made me very jaded and cynical and hateful very quickly. So I got over it pretty fast. Don't worry about it.
I was like that too. When I started stand-up, I was just, always happy all the time, and I met all these miserable comics, right? But over time, they mold me into that, so I totally get it.
the world pretty quickly, so don't worry. Don't worry. It didn't last long.
Right.
You know.
So going back to Buzzkill, like, you know, when I first saw Jackass, I was like, this is pretty much Buzzkill, but more extreme. You know, I remember Buzzkill when it was on. So what was that experience like?
Well, it was my first writing show on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only woman. The guys on the show had to be reined in all the time because they wanted to do things that were very illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not happy that they had to be reined in because they thought that, you know, everything they wanted to do was super punk rock and that MTV was the man. And I guess they weren't wrong. Eventually MTV was the man. But, you know, they were wanting to do things that were impossible, like throw dead sewer rats at people and just weren't viable. But, you know, other than that, it was fun when we got approved of things we did. Two of my favorite things that I got to write was and I cannot believe one of them got approved. I pitched a musical about the Unabomber called Manifesto the Musical,
mm-hmm.
and he approved it, and I'm like, oh great, now I have to write it. So yeah. I wrote the music and the lyrics, and they had people in New York audition for it, which I felt really horrible for when I watched the dailies and realized that somebody I knew was auditioning for it when it didn't really exist. That kind of sucked. And then one of the guys on the show looked a lot like Isaac Mizrahi, so I did a fashion show in Miami,
mm-hmm.
him playing Isaac Mizrahi, and that was a ton of fun. But our jobs almost came to an end when we decided to do the Isaac sketch again at the MTV Awards and the VMA Awards, and we put Isaac on the red carpet. It was Frank as Isaac. And Whitney Houston thought it was really Isaac and got excited, and then she was the main musical guest supposed to perform that night, and she found out backstage that it wasn't really Isaac and went into her dressing room and said she wasn't going to come out. So
mm-hmm.
that meant their major musical guest was, you know, refusing to perform, and the whole show went into chaos, and somebody came out and said, you guys are all fired. And we were literally kicked to the curb. We were sitting on the curb outside of the amphitheater.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty amazing, the whole experience.
Wow. Dave Sheridan, you know, he's such a funny guy, but he's so serious. I've seen him do like Zoom podcasts. You know, he's a serious guy. What was it like to work with him?
I didn't have a lot of interactions with him. I spoke mostly with Travis and Frank. Like you said, he was pretty serious. He took his comedy very serious, and he would come into the meetings, say his piece, and then kind of leave, and kind of kept to himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as the creator and the star.
Yeah.
I would talk to the others. They were a little more approachable, I'll say.
Yeah. Then you do the Tenacious D series. You're the girl at club in this episode. Was that just a standard audition?
Nope. That was, again, that was just a phone call saying, hey, we need people in the scene. It's, you know, it's a club scene. Do you want to come down and hang out for the day and be in the scene? And I was like, hell yeah. I love Jack. I love those guys. And it's basically I get to sit and watch them, you know, fool around and do their thing for a day and see people I know. And, you know, again, it was like comedy school for me. So it wasn't like, you know, being an extra or being, you know, an actor for the day. It was almost like watching people I know and love perform and getting paid for it. So it was a win-win for me.
Yeah. Are you friends with Jack Black?
I mean, I don't see him much anymore. The last time I saw him and spoke with him at length was he did a comedy benefit that I organized for Peace Over Violence, and he came and he performed as the main performance.
Oh.
That's awesome.
That's nice of him.
Yeah, but I mean, he's traveling here and there and everywhere all the time, so I don't really speak to him much.
Yeah, I haven't seen him do much in the movies lately. Then again, a lot of the guys of his generation of comedies who did movies, they're not seen much these days because the political correctness is just so crazy. All movies are going to streamings and not theaters.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't actually think about that. Maybe that is true.
Oh yeah, I mean Burt Kreischer's movie The Machine came out earlier this month and stuff. It didn't last that long in theaters, but hopefully they'll get the ball rolling to have comedy movies come back to theaters because everyone's going to see the Marvel stuff and whatever biopic is coming out, pretty much.
Hmm. Maybe. Yeah.
So was Can't Hardly Wait a standard audition for you?
Yes. Well, I mean, I knew the one of the directors because I was in a groundlings class with her.
Mm-hmm.
So she requested that I audition, but I did go in, and I actually had auditioned for a different part, but they gave me the role that I got, probably because I was so nervous in the audition that I seemed sort of shy. Because I went in and I auditioned for the cheerleader part, which I think mostly Joan Hart played, or the yearbook girl. I think she was yearbook girl. Yeah.
Yeah, the language lab girl as you were accredited. Yeah, did you have any scenes that like ended up on the cutting room floor?
I don't know. I mean, I remember being there for a while, and I don't think so. I just remember being there for a while and beyond the filming of that scene, so I'm not sure. I'm sorry, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I remember Harry giving me great direction, and I remember I remember right after our scene, they did the scene with Love Burger, I think the band,
Mm-hmm.
and with who was in the band. There was a whole bunch of them. It was Donald Faison was in the band, and I can't remember who played drums. But they actually kind of knew a few songs. I mean, they weren't great, but they were like kind of fooling around and playing for a while. Brecken was the lead singer. So I was kind of hanging out watching that, and then some guys were playing football in the parking lot by it. But I don't remember if I had any more lines than that. I don't think so. But they kind of had us hang out and be in, the background of other scenes for a bit.
Right. Yeah. What's it like being in a movie that has two directors? Like, how do they work?
Well, I was only directed by Harry for that, so maybe they were kind of working in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was shooting my stuff, it was just pretty much. I think they were both there, but Harry was the only one who was really directing me, which is probably for the best because if they were both sort of speaking to me, I would have gotten a bit confused, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said action in unison,
Yeah. Right. Or conflicting direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I had just finished my freshman year in high school when the movie came out, and I saw it on video like 7 months later or something like that. And I thought to myself, this is my generation's American Graffiti, because it wasn't a Porky-style teen movie. That was American Pie the next year. But, this movie was like a sweet coming-of-age movie, and there's some typical, raunchy one-liner jokes in it, because it was a PG-13 movie. But, yeah, I was like, oh my God, this is like by American Graffiti, because it's like, the last night before everyone's lives are going to change.
Yep. And it's the cast, there's so many in the cast that went on to be, people in comedy or people in drama. I mean, you've got Jason Segel in there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Selma Blair, Leslie Grossman, Jamie Presley, Freddie Rodriguez went on to do 6 Feet Under with Lauren, Peter Facinelli. I mean, there's just so many people in there who had one line or less, who then went on to do big things. So it's pretty astounding. Mary Vernieu was the casting director, and she definitely had an eye at that point for picking out people. There are a lot of people in that who went on and are now. I think who was the cop? Somebody who played the cop was O'Connell or something. Jerry O'Connell maybe was in it. I don't know. There's so many people in that movie. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, I love Jenna Elfman's scene where she's the angel. I mean, to this day, I still don't know why that scene had to exist. It was kind of pretty random, that she was an angel. But when I met her in 2019, I told her, yeah, what some of my favorite roles of hers was, and I mentioned I Can't Hardly Wait playing the angel. She's like, "Oh, that is so sweet. Yeah, I love doing that scene. That was a lot of fun." She told me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many people in that movie and so many different scenes during the party that there's people that you just didn't even meet because they were on different days. So
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if Seth was on the set the day I was there, and I knew him from before, but I don't think he might have not even been there the day that I was there. So
yeah, Charlie Corsbo's Paradise City scene is hilarious. I laugh every time I see it.
yeah, that was pretty great.
Yeah, he like dropped off the face of the planet. I remember he's the kid in Dick Tracy and What About Bob, and then after this movie, he was like done.
Yeah, people take different paths, I guess, and some decide they want to keep going with it, some don't. I love acting, but I was auditioning for movies and TV, and I was too old to be doing teen stuff, as was obvious pretty much, I think, on this film. And but I had an agent at that point who was like in the kids department, and they were sending me out on stuff that I was way too old for, and I had to transition. And one thing I was doing that my manager was yelling at me about is I would go on these auditions for, I can't believe I'm about to admit this. I would go on these sitcoms, and I would come out, and my manager would call me and yell at me, "What did you do in there?" What? They're furious with you.
Huh.
Like, did you not do the lines correctly? I said, well, I mean, I did them, but I just punched it up a little. She's like, "You can't do that."
Yeah.
Well, they just wasn't very funny. She's like, "You know what? I think you're a writer, not an actor." I said, "Well, maybe you're right," because I just never thought that the copy was funny. And to be fair, it usually wasn't. But, writers and producers don't find it charming when you rewrite their work for an audition.
Oh,
so,
if that had been 20 years before, you would have gotten the job, because I'll tell you why. Danny DeVito, when he got cast on Taxi, he came in there with the attitude of Louis De Palma, and he genuinely meant this. He took the script, threw it on the floor in front of James L. Brooks and Ed Weinberger, and said, "Okay, who wrote this piece of shit?" And the room broke out laughing, and they're like, "You're hired."
Yeah, no, the people I was auditioning for didn't find it as charming as he did. Maybe he got away with it because he was Danny DeVito, but I was not so lucky.
It was the 70s, too. You have to remember that.
Yeah, not so much in the late 90s, early aughts, so.
Yeah. My favorite scene I gotta bring up in Can't Hardly Wait is when Jennifer Love Hewitt and what's his name, Peter Fasinelli, they're having the fight at the party, and he says to her, "Who's gonna love you like I did?" And she's like, "Somebody," and he's like, "Somebody, more like nobody." And then the whole room like stops and looks at him all awkwardly, and then there's that one girl who yells, "Fag."
Yeah, I remember that part.
That's a hilarious part. Hilarious. How about doing Killer Bud?
Oh, yeah. That movie was directed by a friend of mine, Carl Hirsch. And I had a scene with David Faustino from Married with Children.
Mm-hmm.
So I played this real strange goth girl, and I honestly don't remember what the crux of the storyline was, but I had to lick his face at a bar. And, you really have to kind of go for it when you're given that direction, but
yeah.
It's awesome. Amazing. They drew like this spiderweb tattoo on my face and a nose ring and this heavy makeup and gave me this weird spiky hair and this amazing outfit, which is like a corset and like orange fishnets and sleeves, and I just looked completely freakish. Mm-hmm. So it was fun because, I don't normally get that role. So, and I think he was a little bit frightened when he saw me. But then again, he's married with children, so he should probably be used to that type of thing. But yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Goran Nemec, what a legend that guy is.
Yeah.
Parker Lewis. Yeah, this was Robert Stack's last movie, too.
What's that?
This is Robert Stack's last movie.
Yeah, I didn't get to work with him.
Yeah, he was a old Hollywood legend there. You had a role in the Charlie Starkweather movie, Starkweather. How was making that?
That was fun because I got to play, someone of a different era.
Mm-hmm.
I got to do 1940s Rosalind Russell kind of voice. And, I think they sold me where they're like, well, it's kind of about a serial killer. My eyes lit up. I'm like, well, then yes, I'm in. Because I have a slight obsession with that stuff in a weird, strange way. So that was interesting,
Yeah. It's
fun.
fun.
Myself as dialect.
It's funny. Starkweather was like one of the first serial killers, and like few people talk about him. They always talk about Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer and John Gacy and all that. They never talk about Charlie Starkweather. I don't know if it's because Bruce Springsteen did the Nebraska album, or Martin Sheen played that killer that was based on him in Badlands. I don't know. I don't know the reason why not, but yeah, he was like the first serial killer.
Yeah, I don't know why he's not mentioned that much. I think it's sort of seen as like a crime spree.
Yeah, it was a spree killer, but it was like it was before the term serial killer existed, I think.
Yeah.
What's the Super News cartoon?
Well, I had been working on a VH1 show called Illustrated, and I was doing voices for that, and that was based on more pop culture stuff. Like I did Britney Spears' voice, I did Oprah, just a whole bunch of different voices. And then a friend of mine was working for Current TV, and they were doing programming, and he did Super News, which was similar, but it was more political. So he had me come do similar stuff, and that was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, doing cartoon voices is it's hard. It's fun and it's hard because you never know exactly what they're looking for. It's sort of like, well, do you think they sound like this, or do you think they sound like that? And it's all just opinion, really, unless you're trying to mimic somebody, and then it's very specific. But when you're auditioning for something that is, just a character, you have no idea what they want.
Yeah. Was that a Cartoon Network show?
No, it was on Current TV, which was, I believe it was Al Gore's web property at the time.
Oh, okay.
Like, thing that he created. It was on for a while. It was up for a while.
Nice. You had your own series, Law of the Land. What's the genesis of that?
That was Sid Butler and David Cross had created this company/web channel, and they had started by doing a couple of different spoofs, and it was a channel that was it was called FKR TV, and it was the place where all of the music videos for all the bands from French Kiss Records landed, and it was owned by The Orchard, which is a film distribution company, and they decided they wanted to do programming, and it was just sort of perfect timing because I had this idea with this woman I knew, and we had written some scripts, and I knew him from when I was on the radio, and I just sort of reached out to him, and it was just perfect timing because he said, actually, we need programming, and it was one of the easiest things that's ever happened to me because I just sent him the script. He's like, I love it, let's do it. And I sort of was quiet for a second. I'm like, you don't want to have me rewrite the script 10 times or audition for you or jump through 10 hoops? He's like, no, I trust you. I love the script. Here's the money. And it was just amazing. And we got such great actors and comedians involved and a great director, David Avalone, and it's just working with everyone, Benjamin Small and Ron Lynch and Matt Kirshen and Baron Vaughn. I mean, just everybody was so great and funny and took the script and sort of ran with it. So it was a joy to do. I mean, it was stressful because it was low budget and not a lot of time, but everybody made it a good time. So it was fun.
And what a name you had, Quackenberry.
Yeah, the whole thing was ridiculous. I mean, one of my favorite things is we got we had a character, Pierre Lepew, who was a French terrorist, and just the fact that nobody sort of questioned when I wrote that, and we got James
Franco.
James Franco was in it, which is really amazing because he's such a busy guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm blanking right now. I just got distracted.
It's okay.
James Urbaniak played Pierre Lepew, and he's like, "This is great. I get to dust off my French accent," and he just played the hilt out of it, and it's just that everybody, going over the top and really going for it was just great to see. It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility being like the creator and star of your own show.
Yeah, I tend to like to make things. I think it's because I've had to. The genesis I started making things myself because I wasn't seeing roles out there for me, or that I felt I would be able to be cast in. So I started making my own content before the term content creator was around.
Right.
And I always felt like I had to do my everything myself. I had to direct it. I had to produce it. I had to find the money myself. I had to act in it. And so now it's sort of hard for me to let go and let other people do stuff because I'm always used to doing everything myself. So now as other people are sort of, giving me money to do things or helping out, I have to sort of relinquish control, which is great because it's really great to collaborate. But on this, it was really awesome to have a producer, Katie, to be producing it. It was awesome to have David direct it because he has so many great ideas. He's this huge Bond and spy movie fan, so he had great insight on that. And yeah, it really helps when you have other people on your team that can bring different perspectives.
Well, I think we need more content creators. I think that's one of the reasons why this writer strike has been going on for a long time, because everyone has this attitude of like, I'm an actor, and I should be getting my residuals. But it's also like, yeah, but when you're not working, create content. And then there's this attitude of like, I'm not an influencer. I'm not going to host my own podcast or talk show or any of this extra stuff because I'm an actor. I act. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just reading this morning about the SAG and how, whether actors should be compensated for their auditions or not. And I don't know what side I land on it, but I will say that, having to have your own studio in your home and buy the lights and the scrim and the equipment, and that it's a lot to ask an actor.
Yeah.
On a film.
I agree. I think they should at least get gas money, because I've heard so many stories about people driving to auditions with very little gas or very little gas money, and then they find out halfway there that the audition's been rescheduled, and it's just like, that can be so fucking frustrating. They need to be compensated some way for that.
Oh, and especially, I remember when going on commercial auditions, and you'd be in Pasadena, and then you have to make it to Santa Monica within 25 minutes for an audition. You walk in and they're like, "Slate," you say your name, and they're like, "Hold this up and say, and I'm like, man, I could have done this on the phone,
Yeah.
But that's so.
I know. It's crazy. Also, too, there needs to be more directors like Peter Bogdanovich. That guy never auditioned an actor in his whole directing career because he knew what they could do, and if he had to replace somebody, he would. But, he knew pretty much what they had to do, So what made you want to start writing plays?
Well, I started in the theater. I started...
Yeah.
kid, and I did theater in college, and I think I just got fed up and frustrated with the TV stuff. I'd been writing on TV for several years, and sort of hit the wall with the kind of lowest common denominator stuff that I was writing, and I took I was going to see theater and my friends in plays on the weekends, and at the theater I was at one night, I saw they had classes, and I was like, maybe I should take one and sort of see how I do, and I took a playwriting class, and the play that I wrote in that class, I submitted a couple places, and I had a lot of luck. I won some awards with it, and I was like, maybe this is what I should be doing right now, because I had this burnout TV writing. And so I just started focusing on that, and, you know, my friends razzed me. They're like, oh, you're going where the real money is, playwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, once I stopped working on what I thought the studios wanted and perfecting that spec pilot that I thought would sell, and I started writing what meant a lot to me, or what frustrated me, or made me angry, or was vulnerable to me, I started winning all these awards and doing really well, and I thought, okay, well, that's what it is. This is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm supposed to be writing, and I just found that I enjoyed it more, you know, and if I wanted to make money, I need to get a job, you know, writing on a show that's not mine until I sell my own, or when I sell my own. But in the meantime, while I'm not working, or there's a strike on, or what have you, this is what I'm going to do, because I like doing this. And there's something about sitting in a room with other people. There's this study that they did that when you're in a room with a bunch of people watching something in the theater, all of your heartbeats sync up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is true. This study has been done. And I thought that was just amazing, because, you know, everybody's at odds with each other most of the time, but there's some certain kind of empathy that listening to a story in a room with the same people evokes. And I think that that's something that is really needed in this day and age. So, trying to add more of that to the public.
Yeah. You've also won, you know, several awards for your plays: the Julie Harris Playwright Award for Wolves at the Door, and the John Gassner Playwright Award for She's Not There. Are these award ceremonies in New York when you get them?
Well, the Julie Harris was from the Beverly Hills Theater Guild,
Okay.
and unfortunately I won that during the pandemic, so there was no ceremony.
Did they mail it to you?
Essentially, yeah, they did. They sent me the certificate, the not in a frame, but they sent it to me, you know, in paper, so I framed it myself. But
Yeah.
usually they like a luncheon gala, but they didn't have it that year. And for the Gassner, I went. It was actually in New England, so I went, and they had a reading of it, and then they had an award ceremony. And what was nice about that is my folks got to come. And
Oh.
yeah, it was weird though. It happened on my birthday, and my mother got a hold of one of the guys that was in charge and threatened him to make everyone sing "Happy Birthday" to me, which was hugely embarrassing. That's my mother, and but they got to see me win the award, and I think that was really important to them, and it was just nice. It was nice for them to see me, you know, succeed in that way, because I think, you know, it was their hugest nightmare that I would A, go to Hollywood to become a writer, and then B, stop writing TV to do playwriting. That was even worse.
Yeah.
For them to see, you know, I had succeeded was nice for them. So.
When is your birthday?
It's in October.
October. Are you a Libra, Scorpio?
Oh, I'm a Libra all the way.
Oh, that's.
Well, I do hold grudges like Scorpios do. That's Scottish.
Oh yes. Scorpios do hold grudges, and I know a lot of them. Yeah, I'm a Gemini, and I have two sides to me. I have my sweet side, and I've got my dark side. You know.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. That's why we're getting along, because Geminis and Libras get along.
Air signs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get into radio with Ali on the air?
That was a fluke. I was writing for MTV
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and I was on the side writing this, and I was doing stand-up at night, but writing for MTV during the day, and I was writing this fictitious column. You know, everybody was blogging back then. It was the thing to have a blog. And so I was writing this fictitious rock column through the eyes of this kind of groupie character called Sex in the City.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of this character who's always backstage and doesn't really, it was like a rock review, a review of shows, but from backstage. So this character didn't necessarily watch the show, but she's like reviewing the behind the scenes and whether the parties were good or not.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of a gossip thing, right? And it was very cynical, and I tried to be as funny as possible. And these people who saw me carrying on at a Greek theater Strokes show thought I was funny and asked me if I wanted to write it to them. And then it just kind of got passed around and became popular. And then these guys that were starting this radio station called Indie 103 were reading it every week, and they kind of called me out of the blue and asked if I wanted to be on-air talent because they thought it was really funny. And I was like, yeah, okay, I guess. And I didn't realize, what the scope of it was, but I guess, I angered hundreds of actual DJs that were vying for the job. I didn't know what it was really. I was like, I guess, okay, yeah, sounds like a good time. And I got this gig that, was on air on this radio station that became this cult thing that, Rolling Stone was writing about all the time. And, then it became the place where Henry Rollins was a DJ, and Jonesy from Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, and Camp Freddy, and all these, icons were working, and then me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was sort of not in over my head, but I just had no idea what I was walking into. And, I got to go to see all the different shows. I flew around to all the festivals, and I had always been a huge music fan and known a lot of musicians, but then this sort of like really kicked it into high gear, and I became heavily involved in it. And, I was still writing and stuff, but I didn't really have this much time to do stand-up or audition for stuff because I was doing this almost full time. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, I mean, did you at least like it?
I liked it, but I'll say that sometimes it's possible to become too involved, and if you're writing satire, it's possible to become too much like your subject matter.
Yeah.
Or too close to the thing that you're spoofing. And I found that, it's like this character was sort of this, person who was going to all the parties and drinking all the booze and doing all the drugs. And then it kind of got a little close to the truth. I was like partying all the time because you've got a backstage pass and you're with all these people and they're partying and you're like, oh hell, why not? And then all of a sudden I got a job after the indie stuff. I got a job essentially as a VJ, interviewing bands on this new TV show. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there and I was hungover and I was interviewing this band who shall remain nameless, who were just jerk off, and they were so rude to me. And I was thinking, like, why am I sitting here asking these people about their lives and their creative pursuits when I'm not doing my own? When I haven't written anything in so long, I haven't auditioned for something in so long, and I'm tired. I don't want to be here. I don't want to, and these guys are just crapping all over me.
Oh.
And it was this realization, like, I'm sitting here toughing up these guys and publicizing them, and they're being rude to me, and I should just leave right now and go write something for myself,
Right.
That was sort of like the beginning of the end.
Oh, that is the worst. Yeah, that is the worst.
It's like, I mean, they probably had 12 interviews at that point that day, and they were just sick of it. But at the same time, it's like, listen, I had to prep for this. I had to read all about you guys, and you're not that interesting, and now you're being rude to me, and, you know, don't be like that, you know? You want to be on my good side, because I'm the one who's going to make you look good, so, but, you know.
Yeah.
That was just sort of me realizing that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing creative things, not you know, pumping up the other guys that are doing creative things. So.
Yesterday I talked to the legendary Fritz Coleman, and he told me at the end of the day they're making themselves look bad when you have an interview like that.
Yeah, and listen, a lot of it was fun, and I got to meet some of my idols, and I'm still friends with a lot of the people I interviewed. I mean, I got to interview Debbie Harry, who was still is one of my idols, and I interviewed John Doe and some awesome people. But then there was, like, in the usually bands that no one really knew, smaller bands that were just so crappy, you know?
Yeah.
But that's part of the gig, I guess.
Yeah, it can be. It can have its good days, its bad days interviewing people. So how come you don't do the Panic Parade anymore?
You know,
same reason, pretty much.
No, I think everyone I chose to do the Panic Parade was because of the subject matter was pretty
deep,
straightforward. I mean, when you're talking about mental health issues, nobody's going to be like, no, I don't care. You know, I mean, pretty much if somebody agrees to talk to you about that, they're usually pretty open and vulnerable, or, you know, at least accommodating.
Yeah.
It's just a work, and you know, I volunteer as a mental health advocate, and I do interviews I'm an MTV talent ambassador, so every year for Mental Health Action Day, I do a whole slew of interviews, and it's a ton of work, and so just doing something every week at this point when I've got other work to do, I just couldn't afford the time. Something I would like to be able to do again, but right now it's just not something I have the time for.
Yeah, I mean, I like the episodes I heard. I heard the one you did with Sam Levine. That was pretty funny and pretty deep. And then the one with Kelly Carlin, which I told you I was jealous about because I don't know how good or bad my interview turned out with her. It's kind of mixed, in my opinion. But it was good what I heard. You know, I liked, you know, hearing you talk about, you know, the mental health issues and everything and stuff. And yeah, I mean, in my family, we got alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, etc. You know, and I think that the internet has helped people become more aware of the epidemic of mental health issues.
Yeah, you know, one of the reasons why I think I started talking about it is because so long I hid it, and it made it worse, and I was told to hide it, especially as far as career. You know, being a woman in the writer's room and a comedy writer, if you said you were depressed in front of a bunch of comedy writers, they would just destroy you. Mm-hmm. You know, like, oh, poor baby, you sad. You know, it would just be horrible, and probably even to this day if you did that. So I would just, you know, pretend everything was fine, but the pretending part just is really a lot of energy, a lot of work, and I think exacerbates it. And when people don't say how they're really feeling, it can damage your health in other ways as well. So
yeah.
Once I was able to talk about it with other people and realize it wasn't that scary, and that the people who are rude to you about it are just jerk offs anyways, you know, and their opinion doesn't matter, it just opened it up, and I think it makes it easier for other people to talk about it as well. And the worst thing is that not talking about it and then harming yourself because you think you have nowhere to go to talk about it. So, you know, it's just sort of me trying to help others because I felt like I couldn't talk about it. So, yeah, it's just something that I think my parents' generation and part of my generation, mm-hmm. You know, it's like, oh, you know, Fight Club, we don't talk about depression. Well, I want this upcoming generation to be able to talk about it and not feel bad about it. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's weird. Our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, they just came from those times where like you couldn't show emotion. You
Mhm.
couldn't say "I love you." Although I do think the baby boomers said "I love you" a lot more than the pre-war grandparents did.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it might even be why I became an actor at a certain extent because I had I'm a very sensitive person, and I had all of these feelings that I couldn't express, and they had to come out somehow. And so I was just a bad kid, so I might as well funnel it into drama or something. So,
But you're doing okay now as far as mental health goes, right?
oh yeah, yeah, well, I have my bad days, but so doesn't everybody else. But I think being able to find a therapist to talk to and find the right people to help you is exactly why I'm okay now. Because if I hadn't, I don't know. But that's the whole point, is being able to talk about it so that you can find the right resources. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that if people don't talk about it, they won't be able to find those resources. So,
But
yeah.
you remember that movie Prozac Nation?
Oh, and the book was
Yeah.
workable.
That
Yep.
line that Christina Ricci says at the end of the movie, it pretty much sums up me and so many people. She says, I wish I could die and go to heaven and be brought back just to see what people really think of me. It's such a universal feeling when you suffer from depression and low self-esteem and all of that stuff. It's a profound way to put it. It's like It's a Wonderful Life in some way.
Yeah. I think I agree with that. I also maybe would think more of Heather's, where she's like,
Yeah.
burnout. I had at least 10 more people at my funeral or whatever.
Yeah.
that whole like going to your own funeral fantasy. But yeah, that book was a huge game changer for so many people.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you have any upcoming projects?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a musical right now with Craig Finn from Hold Steady,
Mm-hmm.
and we just got some sheet music for it, so I'm pretty excited about that. And it's a rock and roll Greek tragedy about a star-crossed romance between a
Wow.
New York designer and a up-and-coming British rock star
Huh.
over the span of 10 years. And it takes place during the grunge 90s and the early aughts, like the Meet Me in the Bathroom early aughts, which I don't know if you've seen that documentary, but it's like
What's it called?
mine is called This Will Be Our Year, but the documentary I just mentioned was called Meet Me in the Bathroom, which is like the Strokes and the Yeah in that era.
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, I think it's on Showtime, but yeah, it's a great documentary. It just talks about how after sort of 9/11 time period, there was this explosion of electric thrash rock and those sort of post-punk bands that became really big in the Brooklyn area.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, you probably saw a lot of up and coming bands in Boston, right?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching the Bosstones and the Pixies, but
Right.
I was a little bit young for that before I went to school. But I was around the Lower East Side a lot during that stroke kind of era. That was like when I was, doing the radio stuff and running around, like, seeing
Did you
all
hang
of
out?
those.
Did you hang out in like any of the comedy places, like the Ding Ho or anything places like that?
No, by the time I was, when you're doing music stuff, it's like the same time as the comedy gigs. So, but I mean, when I was doing stand-up, I was at the Improv and I was at Belly Room at the Comedy Store, but I was doing a lot of the alternative rooms, like, the Notebook comedy. So I was at Largo and I was at Luna Park and, every single coffee shop and, Pep Boys where they were doing, wherever it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, I saw one of your videos. You were at the Improv.
Yeah, I've done the Improv a bunch. I host a lot. I would host at the Mint and at the Improv and places like that. I find emceeing easier than just doing a set for some reason.
Yeah.
Less,
Yeah, comedy is its own skill, especially in stand-up, and I did it for 10 years. I loved it. I just didn't like the politics backstage. It turned me off so much after a while.
yeah, I guess I didn't like the hours after a while.
Yeah, that's a popular one I've heard from people too. Yeah, the hours never bothered me. I'm a night owl.
I am on my nights tied up with it. I just want to go out. I don't want to have to go to the club.
Yeah. Real quick, we gotta play my secret silly game. This is a series of silly celebrity party questions. No win or lose. It's just pure fun. And how the game works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me that exact same question and I answer it. And feel free to comment on answers because they might be funny.
Okay.
Allie, are you ticklish?
Yes. Are you?
Oh, yes. If you tickle me without warning, though, I might hit you in the groin.
Ouch.
Just out of a herky-jerky reflex.
Okay. Well, now I know.
Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
Mine is an innie. What about yours?
It's an innie as well. And June is International Belly Button Month, and I celebrate it every year. It's the best internet holiday known to man, I think.
I had no idea. See, you learn something every day.
Yes, well, I had to bring it up because tomorrow is the last day, the 30th.
Party then.
What was that?
I said, well, I'm going to throw a huge party tonight then.
You better. And you better credit me.
I will.
What color are your toenails painted?
Robin's egg blue.
Oh, that's nice. Mine are painted light purple right now.
Ah, interesting. Okay, I like purple. Like a Prince purple or like a lavender?
A lavender.
Nice. Very nice.
What would you say is your best personality trait?
I think people would say that I'm funny or amusing, but I think it's my loyalty.
Oh, I like that.
How about you? What's yours?
I have empathy and I have no filter.
That's an interesting combination.
Well, being a Gemini, it accommodates it. Manifests, as I should say. This is a question I'm asking for the very first time. It's a new question. What would you like to have named after you?
Ooh. I don't know why this flashed into my mind first. An ice cream shop, but that's not what I think I want. It seems like a theater or a museum for kids. How about you? With an ice cream shop inside.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah.
How about yourself?
Me? I'd like a vibrator named after me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But I'm not even going to test that. Literally.
The Tommy Chatsy, that's what I'd call it.
Okay.
And then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Cannot stand the smell of cooking broccoli. It makes me want to vomit. It just grosses me out. I don't know why. I just can't stand it. How about you?
Either farts or feet.
Oh, well, I mean, who likes that? Well, actually, I'm not even going to ask. There are people who probably do.
Yeah. Lots of crazies out there.
There are.
Well, Allie, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I just love your energy, and I love the fact that you're just, so creative. Keep being creative and busy, and I hope you have a great summer.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you so
Happy
much.
Belly Button Month.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Ali MacLean, ain't she a sweetheart? Like I said, I love her energy. I think she's a good person. I love that she's being so creative. Hollywood is tough, and she's going out there and she's kicking ass and taking names there. And also, too, I apologize for the sound issues there. I don't know why the phone was cutting out like that. The phone issues have been very less frequent up here in Modesto and Redding. They're happening all the time, but up here It's better. I guess today was just a fluke. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.